Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 310. We're doing our week 17 NFL picks against the spread. Hard to believe it's week 17 already. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you and how's your week 16?
I'm doing great. I'm also in a state of disbelief that it's week 17. It's been a crazy quick season. My week 16, I had some pretty bad whiffs last week. I didn't lose any. I actually think I made out positive money-wise. My record was only 7-8-1. I missed big time on the Washington game. That one I should have switched to. The whole Dwayne Haskins starting thing should have been more of a red flag for me than it ended up being, and Terry McLaurin being out on top of all of that. When you're outplayed by a dude who's been 3 weeks ago was taking like advanced mathematics courses at Old Dominion University, that's usually not a good sign. But that was one of my big whiffs. The Cowboys beating the Eagles stunned me too. So like those were the two biggest losses I had. But I rebounded nicely with the Packers on Sunday night and the Bills on Monday night. So a good little 2-game win streak to end the season. And I think based on last week's play, Aaron Rodgers has wrapped up the MVP, which is very nice for me as well.
Yeah, I think Rodgers wanted it too, especially because Patrick Mahomes is not going to play this week. Like if Mahomes played this week for some reason, if he needed to, and he threw like 8 touchdowns, like I think you might be in danger a little bit, but he's done. So I think Rodgers definitely wrapped it up. And I think the image of him winning in the snow and like putting up 40 points against a good team, I think people are going to remember that. And I think they're going to vote him in for MVP. I actually wrote an article today on the site talking about why I thought Rodgers should win MVP. I actually wrote it before that game, so it was kind of it's a good thing that Rodgers didn't screw up that game, because then the article looked pretty bad. So I went 11-5 in week 16, hit 4 out of the top 5 plays. Jacksonville was a disaster. I got so much hate mail for that pick. They're like, how dare you pick Jacksonville over Chicago? Like you should get another job or something. And I was like, okay, I'll get another job then. And I think that, the Dallas Eagles game that we both got wrong. Fletcher Cox's injury played a huge part in that. Like if Fletcher Cox didn't go down, I think the Eagles still might have won. They were up 14-3 and then he got hurt and then they couldn't put any pressure on Andy Dalton. So I think that really affected that game. So I wouldn't take that loss like too harshly. I think that, heading into that game, I was like, well, let's wait on Cox news. And then Cox was playing and then he got hurt. So.
Yeah, no, that Fletcher Cox injury was pretty brutal, because I remember seeing him sitting on the sidelines. I'm like, oh, he's out. All right, well, they got an 11-point lead. They should be okay. And then everything went downhill from there.
Yeah. Justin's asking, what happened to the Giants win divisional bet? It's still alive. If the Giants win and the Redskins lose, the Giants will win the division. And what's crazy is that I checked my bookmaker account. And I forgot that I doubled up on that bet. So I actually have $200 to win $3,600 on the Giants winning the division. So I'm going to have to find a way to hedge that. I think I was talking to an emailer. He said I should tease the 2 games and then that'll give me a good chance to hedge. So I might just do that. Chris says Haskins cleared waivers. He's done. We were talking a little bit about Haskins before, we started recording, and we're saying that maybe the team that plays the Redskins in the first round, if the Redskins get there, maybe they'll sign him and then they'll ask him some questions, and he'll probably tell them where the best strip clubs are in Washington.
Yeah, I think some team will take a chance on Haskins. I think he's probably going to end up on a practice squad for the last week of the season. Or just sign a reserve future contract to be on a 90-man roster next offseason. But it also wouldn't surprise me if teams look at his maturity and say, that's an issue, we don't want to deal with it. And he kind of waits around on the free agent market until someone's like, all right, there's a ton of upside here. Let's just take a shot on it and see if we can do anything. I mean, teams buy low on young quarterbacks all the time. Like they just give him a shot to compete. So I could see him doing it. I don't think I have faith that he's going to pan out, but you never know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, some teams definitely going to take a chance on him. I mean, Josh Rosen's got chances. Blaine Gabbert has gotten lots of chances. Blake Bortles was just added to the Rams roster this week because of an injury. We'll get to that game later. So I mean, he's going to get a chance. I feel like if Al Davis were still alive, the Raiders would snap him up instantly. But yeah, some team is going to take him. So all right, let's get into the games. Before we do, please hit subscribe or the like button on YouTube, or post a comment, or share this video with someone who likes football but may not know about the show. It would help us out a lot. So just like word of mouth or interacting some way, liking, commenting would be great. All right, so every game this week is divisional. The NFL started this a few years ago, and I think it's worked out really well. So there's 7 early games, there are 8 late games, and then there's 1 Sunday night game. So let's get into the early slate. The Cowboys at the Giants. This line opened up Cowboys -2, -2.5 rather, and it's up to -3. So who do you like in this game?
So I like the Giants in this one. The main point is a reason we already talked about. Fletcher Cox getting hurt against the Eagles. That's the reason that the Cowboys were able to come back and win that game, because the Eagles couldn't pressure them. I think the Giants are going to have a better time doing that, because the big strength of that defense is their defensive line. Leonard Williams has played well this year, and Dalvin Tomlinson and Dexter Lawrence have both progressed, and they can get a lot of pushback into the backfield. So I think that there's going to be a lot of good stuff there from that unit against what's still a beleaguered Cowboys offensive line. And, I'm not super confident in the Giants offense. Daniel Jones hasn't looked right since suffering those late season hamstring and ankle injuries. And, he didn't look great last week against Baltimore, but maybe with another week get healthier, he can get going. And honestly, if not, I think that Wayne Gallman can run pretty well on this Dallas defense. This Cowboys defense hasn't been great against the run this year. They've looked better in recent weeks in totality, but I think that they're going to have trouble with Gallman. So I'm going to be on the Giants here as the underdog. Since we're getting +3, it's a pretty good scenario here. And as Rick mentioned, Joe and his daughter Isla won the J-League championship this year. So congratulations to them. I was pulling for them. First championship for them in the 10-year history of our league.
Well, congratulations. I don't know these people, but I'm glad they won. So I agree with you on this game. I like the Giants. The only question is something you mentioned, is that we don't know about Daniel Jones's injury right now. Like, he couldn't move at all against the Ravens, but having another week to get healthier, I think that could definitely really help him out. And if he's at least mobile, it could really negate Dallas's only good aspect of defense, which is getting to the quarterback. So if Jones can avoid some pressure, he could find the receivers who have good matchups in this game. And then you talked about how Fletcher Cox's absence was huge, and we talked about in the open. The Giants have a good defensive line. They can get pressure on Andy Dalton, who shouldn't get Zach Martin back this week. And I think Dallas is going to be limited. I mean, they've gotten so lucky in recent games. The 2 games before the Eagles game, they got 7 turnovers from the Bengals and the 49ers, and they were outgained in both those games. And then last week, they got lucky with Fletcher Cox getting hurt. So I think this team is very lucky, and I think we're getting some great line value with the Giants. The Giants were -3 on the advanced line. Now it's Dallas -3. That's a 6-point line move with 2 key numbers. So I think this is definitely a play on the Giants. I just want to see what Daniel Jones's status is. If he's not on the injury report, I think this could be a big play on the Giants.
Yeah, I don't get why one game would swing it by 6 points. And I get it. The Giants didn't look good against the Ravens, and the Cowboys beat the Eagles, which was a surprise. But again, as we've said, there's a reason that the Cowboys made that comeback. And I mean, we can't discount the Ravens. They're starting to look like a much better team right now overall. They are playing some of their best football. So a 6-point line move is pretty insane. So I think it's definitely a play on the Giants. I have 1 unit down right now, but I could easily see it going up to 3 if Daniel Jones is a full participant in practice by Thursday or something along those lines.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. We had a question about why there are no non-Sunday games, and there used to be non-Sunday games in Week 17, but then they changed it, and now they don't have any because they don't want to give an advantage to teams. Like, teams complained, playoff teams. They're like, wait, why do we have to play Monday night? So they kind of moved it around. And so Chris is saying I need a fresh cut for the Week 17 Super Contest. I'm actually tied for 10th place in the Super Contest, so pretty stressful in this final week. Gotta make sure I finish well. So let's get to the next game. It is the Steelers at the Browns. So this line opened up Browns -6.5, and it was sitting at 7.5 when I started the picks on Tuesday, and then it went off the board because Mason Rudolph was announced as the starter in this game, and now this line is at 10.5. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I kind of like the Steelers here. I just think that they've started to figure things out on in their game against the Colts last week. We saw them finally start to take some deep chances, and that was a big deal for them. And in order to continue to have success in the playoffs, I think they're going to have to run that type of offense. Now, I know without Ben Roethlisberger, it's a little bit more difficult. But hopefully, I'm thinking that Mason Rudolph might have developed a bit on the bench enough to keep this game close. I'm also expecting that the Pittsburgh defense will do their best to get pressure on Baker Mayfield. We've seen him struggle when he's under pressure in the past. I know his offensive line has been much better this year, but TJ Watt's having a huge year. So I'm expecting that if they can get a little pressure on him, the Browns might not be able to outscore the Steelers by that much. So I'm really banking more on the defense than Mason Rudolph here. I could see Cleveland winning this game by double digits in this case, but I could also see Mason Rudolph coming out, playing well and being able to move the ball on offense better than people expecting it and keeping this closer than people are expecting. So I'm going to be on the Steelers here. It's not going to be a huge play, maybe one unit because I don't want to bet heavily on Mason Rudolph. But I think I will go with the Steelers here. I just think that they're still playing for something, and more than anything else, they're playing to be sure that they're confident enough to get some wins in the postseason after a rocky finish to the season.
Are you sure that TJ Watt and all those other guys are going to play though? Like I think there's a chance they might sit, and like even if they play, they might play like a half or something. Because while this game means a little bit for the second or third seed, I think it's more important to have rest going into the playoffs. And remember, there are no fans in the stands, so it's not like these road games in the playoffs are going to have a big advantage. And it's not like the Steelers are a Southern team or a dome team, and they have to go to Buffalo in the second round of the playoffs rather than be at home. Like it's the same weather, like Pittsburgh and Buffalo, really. So I don't think it's an advantage, and I think they'd rather sit their players and make sure they're healthy heading into the playoffs. And so I think there's a decent chance that they won't play. And even if they do play, they might see that Buffalo's up big on the Dolphins, and they just might sit their players anyway. So I think we might get a skeleton crew Steeler team against the Browns that need the win, especially after last week's debacle where they didn't have any receivers and they were missing 2 linemen. If the Browns get the receivers back and their linemen back, I think they should win this game easily because I just don't really see the Steelers trying. Now, maybe the Steelers play other guys except for Roethlisberger for the entire game. I just don't think they do.
Yeah, so my thought on this, and one of the reasons I don't understand why they're sitting Roethlisberger is they have a chance if they beat the Browns that could knock the Browns out of the playoffs. And if they lose because of how tight the AFC race is, and I would have thought that would have been a good confidence builder. Be like, hey, we beat this pretty good team in our division heading into the playoffs, and we knocked them out. Kind of get them ready. But I guess you might have a point about the rest thing. I was just assuming they were resting Ben Roethlisberger because he was banged up. I still think that there's a reason for them to play their starters in this one just to try to beat Cleveland. But I may reassess. If late in the week it's looking like, TJ Watt's only going to play half the game, then I'm probably going to change my tune and go on to the Browns. But for now, I'm just anticipating they're sitting Big Ben to be sure he's ready. But again, if it spreads to more players, then I think your side would definitely be the right take.
Yeah, so something on that is I think that I think there's still a scenario where the Steelers get the second seed. They might still play the Browns in the first round. So I think that would be pretty bad if they do that. So I don't know. Yeah, I just looked at the playoff machine, like where you're talking. So if the Steelers win this game, if the Titans lose, which we'll talk about later, and the Dolphins beat the Bills, the Steelers would host the Browns in the first round of the playoffs. So giving the Browns like some information, like even if Roethlisberger doesn't play, like giving them like any sort of tape, I think that could be pretty detrimental too. So I think that might be another reason why Roethlisberger's sitting.
It's a good point. I'm going to have to reassess on this game later in the week, because if that is the case, then it would take precedent to just let the Browns kind of beat them and not have to face them in that first round of the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get more and more news as the week goes on. Like maybe we'll get news that like Deontay Johnson and TJ Watt will sit. So we'll see. All right. The next game is the Jets at the Patriots. This line opened up Patriots -3. It went to 3.5, and now it's back down to 3. So who do you like here?
So I like the Jets. I've picked wrong on the Jets, I think 4 consecutive times, which is pretty impressive. But my reasoning for it is you just have to look at the New England offense. It has been terrible. They have no receiving weapons. Their best running back is hurt and is probably not going to play in this game. I can't imagine that they would activate Damian Harris at this point. If they do, then I just don't understand why they would do that. Sony Michel has looked good at times running the ball, but the Jets have actually been very, very good against the run in recent weeks. They completely bottled up Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt last week, except for a couple touchdowns. I know that sounds bad, but like yardage-wise, they did practically nothing. And I know they were down some offensive linemen, but the Patriots are down their top 2 tackles. They've been without Marcus Cannon all year, and then Isaiah Wynn's been out in recent weeks. So the Jets might be able to collapse in on the edges and slow the run game. And then you just look at the quarterback position. You're either going to have Cam Newton start again. He's been terrible in recent weeks. Or they're going to put Jarrett Stidham in the game, who I am very well spoken about how much I don't believe that he's going to ever be a franchise quarterback. And he came in late against the Bills. And, granted, he's working with nothing. So is Cam Newton. Because they don't have any receiving weapons, but he didn't look very good. And at one point, he almost threw a pass into the ground backwards, trying to throw it away. It got tipped, I think, by a lineman. But it looked like he almost threw it backwards. So the pocket presence is still a problem for him. I just think that the Jets are playing better on defense. They'll contain the Patriots' offense and keep this close no matter what. This is probably a field goal game. So if we bet the +3, we're getting both sides of it. And I don't know. I just don't think the Patriots are going to be very motivated for this one. Like, they're coming off an embarrassing loss on Monday Night Football, but at this point in the season, who cares? Like, if they lose out, they're in better shape for the draft. And I think all these veterans are probably just like, screw it. I just want to get home and spend time with my family. Like, I've had a good run here. Like, I'm not going to complain about missing the playoffs once. And I think, meanwhile, the Jets are like, hey, if we can win this, beat the Patriots, we'll have a 3-game win streak running into next year. So I'm going to be on the Jets for a couple of units here. I just don't see any motivation for the Patriots, and I don't think they have the personnel on offense to do anything right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I can't really see the Patriots trying hard. I mean, they have to be thinking about their tropical island vacations right now, getting out of the cold Foxborough weather, So I don't think they're going to try very hard. You see these veteran teams that have had success in the past, and then they have bad seasons, and they just quit at the end of the year. So, I think that's going to happen here. I think it's interesting, how much line value we're getting with the Patriots. The advanced spread on this game was Patriots -9, and now it's 3. So it's gone down 6 points through key numbers of 3, 6, and 7, and even a minor one of 4. But on the side, I kind of equated that to in the mid 80s, you'd have to spend $300 on a VCR. And now you can probably get one for $5 at a garage sale. Yeah, you're getting great value, but what are you going to do with a VCR? So getting great value, is sometimes not a good thing. And I think that's the case here. So I'm on the Jets here. I'm just not going to bet them because one thing that I remember, and I'm sure you remember this too, and everyone else. The last time Sam Darnold played against Bill Belichick, he claimed that he saw ghosts. And I don't know if I want to back a quarterback thinking that way. If Belichick is motivated at all to game plan in this game, I'm sure he'll be able to trick Darnold into some interceptions. I could totally see that happening, and the Patriots defense winning an ugly game 10-7 or something like that. But I think otherwise, and even then, that is still a push. So. I think I'm still going to be on the Jets. I just can't see the Patriots scoring enough to cover the spread.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And your point on Sam Darnold seeing ghosts, that is definitely a worry, but I also think that might motivate Darnold. In some weird way, he might be like, I got to show well. But then, again, he could be putting pressure on himself to do well. So that's not always a good thing. I just want to point something out about Cam Newton before we go that I found fascinating. If you just look at his stats throughout the year in each game, his total passing yards just declined like throughout the year. And I think it pretty much shows that he is dealing with some sort of injury. I know we've hypothesized that on this podcast before, but around the time of the Broncos game when he hit his hand, he started performing badly, and he's never recovered since then. So I'm sure he's dealing with something. But it's been really crazy just to watch his play decline every single week, and he has no help. So, it's hard to evaluate what he has done this season, and I'll be interested to see what type of interest he gets on the open market. But, I hope he lands with a team that has at least some semblance of offensive weapons, and that their number one receiver isn't Jacoby Myers, who I love, but is not a number one guy.
No, definitely not. Doesn't he have an abdomen injury too? Like he's been on the injury report with that.
Abdomen, I think, and then he's had shoulder problems in the past, so all those things are connected, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a shame because he has played well when he's been healthy. Like earlier in the year, he went toe to toe with the Seahawks in week 2, and he won some other good games. He has played well this year. It just it's gotten worse and worse recently. Remember the first Bills game? Like he almost won. He fumbled at the 20-yard line, but he still had a good game. It's gotten a lot worse, and yeah, he's not healthy at all right now, and that's been his bugaboo throughout his career, unfortunately. All right, next game. Speaking of injured quarterbacks, Vikings at the Lions. There's no line on this game because Matthew Stafford may not play. He had a rib injury heading into Week 16, and then he sprained his ankle on the first drive of the game. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit torn on this one. I kind of want to bet the Vikings, but I don't know if they're going to be motivated to try that hard at this point. The Lions just have such an awful defense and are probably going to be starting Chase Daniel in this game. And I don't think that he has the downfield passing ability to take advantage of the big weakness that is the cornerback room for the Vikings. And I think that room's going to be a lot stronger next year because they have young players, but it's going to have to be a lot of DeAndre Swift moving the ball for the Lions, which is possible, but I'm just not convinced that they're going to do it consistently. I think the Vikings can definitely move the ball because Dalvin Cook can take advantage of that run defense. They've allowed like 26 total touchdowns to RBs this year, which is the most in the NFL by a lot. And I think that the secondary is going to have trouble containing Jefferson and Thielen, and Cousins will be able to hit them. The one thing I'm concerned about, though, is, how much does this game mean to the Vikings? Like, they're not going to play anyone who's probably banged up, so there will be without starters on defense. If this game gets out of hand, they could pull their starters, whether they're down big or up big, and just let their backups finish out the season to avoid injury risks. So then there'd be a backdoor cover risk. I'm going to have to see what this line is. I would still lean on the Vikings because of the personnel advantage. But, if it's like, oh, there's a bunch of injured guys and none of them are going to play, and it's like, oh, Kirk Cousins is going to play like half the game, and so are the top receivers, then I'll switch sides to the Lions. But I can't see a reason to back Detroit right now just because their offense looks really bad and their defense is really bad. So I'll be on the Vikings here unless this line's absurd.
Yeah, it obviously depends what the line is. If it's like double digits or something, I'll probably be on the Lions, even if Chase Daniel starts, because I think with the Vikings having so many injuries on defense, especially Eric Kendricks, his absence has been enormous the past few weeks. Like without him, like I said that he's been the glue that's held the defense together because the defense has been missing so many players, and without him, that was like 8 defensive starters out, and like it's no wonder Alvin Kamara got 6 touchdowns. So DeAndre Swift could score multiple touchdowns to keep this game close, and then TJ Hawkinson over the middle of the field without Kendricks and Barr. That's a nice advantage too. So I think people are going to be reluctant to bet on the Lions because of what they saw against the Buccaneers. But Chase Daniel had no reps and he was playing a healthy defense. The Buccaneers are only missing 1 defensive starter. So Chase Daniel is going to do better in this game. And you're right. Like maybe Minnesota rests some starters that it wouldn't rest otherwise because it's week 17. Like I said, it really depends on what the line is. If it's like 9 or higher, I'll probably be on the Lions. If it's like closer to 7, I might be on the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm kind of anticipating a line that's close to 7. I think it might come in at 8 though. So, I can see both sides of this line. I'm just going to stick with the one that I think is the better team. But you make good points about Daniel with first team reps could do well, especially if he's focused more on just checking it down to Amendola, and if they have Marvin Jones running shorter routes and not stretching the field as much, maybe they could methodically move the ball on offense. I'm just not willing to trust them because I could also see them just completely quitting, knowing that Darrell Bevell's an interim coach and just saying, all right, we'll come back next year. This game just isn't that appealing to me right now. Both teams have reasons to quit.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to bet that game. We have a question about how Tom Brady's season has gone as a whole. So let's just get into that because the next game is Falcons at Buccaneers. This line opened up Buccaneers -6, and it's up to 6.5. We just saw this matchup 2 weeks ago where Tampa was down big at halftime, and then they came back. So who do you like here, and what are your thoughts of Brady's season in 2020?
Yeah, so I like the Bucs here quite a bit, and I think Brady's had a good season. I think Patrick's point, he has been inconsistent. I think that's correct. But I also think that's partially related to, there have been some injuries on the offensive line. When Ali Marpet has been out, he's been under more pressure from the interior. I think that's had a big impact on him. We saw Donovan Smith out a couple weeks ago, and that had a big impact on him. I think that was against the Falcons, if I remember correctly. And that had an impact early. But Brady's also developing chemistry with a whole new set of weapons. Like, Gronk he's worked with, and Antonio Brown he had worked with previously as well. But Brown was only with him for 13 days, and he joined mid-season. And then he had to develop chemistry with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and all the other receivers on the roster without, like, a real full offseason. So I think we've kind of seen Brady be a little up and down because, they're still meshing as a team. And I think they're possibly hitting their stride at the right time. We'll see what ends up happening. But I think that this matchup against the Falcons, they struggled early in the last game, as you referenced, but really turned it on at the end. I kind of think that's how this game's going to go more so. The Bucs know they need to win this game to wrap up the number 5 seed. And if they do that, they're guaranteed to face the winner of the NFC East. And that should be a game that they're favored in. I don't know about heavily because Tom Brady isn't always good against great pass rushes. And, Giants are his kryptonite. So if they somehow get in and win, like, who knows? I will be very upset. That I'll be happy for you, but I'll be upset that I have to choose between Brady and the Giants again. We already had to do it once this year, and I was going to go with the Giants and changed. I'm still mad about it. But anyway, back to this game. The Falcons, I just don't know how much they have to play for. They put a lot on the table when they played Tampa Bay last, and they did not come up with a win. They kind of blew it. I could see them just coming into this game kind of flat, being like, oh, this again. Like, hey, even if we get up big, it's not going to matter. So I don't know how hard they're going to try. I don't think Julio Jones is going to play in this game either. I think the Bucs defense will be in better shape to contain that offense than they were last time these two teams played. And I think the Falcons beyond that will be flat from the loss to the Chiefs. They really had a chance to win if A.J. Terrell doesn't drop that interception, if Young Wei-Koo doesn't miss that field goal at the end. They could have upset one of the best teams in the NFL. Instead, they're coming into the week with another loss. And even though this is a divisional opponent, I just don't know if they're going to be motivated for it. So I'm going to be on the Bucs here for 3 to 4 units. I just like it a lot, especially if we're getting a line under 7.
Yeah, I like Tampa as well. And I think a good factor here is that a couple weeks ago, as I mentioned, the Buccaneers are down big, and it seemed like they made some great adjustments at halftime to kind of solve what Atlanta was doing. And they had that information, and with like the Falcons playing hard against the Chiefs, like I doubt they're going to devise something new against the Buccaneers in such a short period of time. So I think Brady should be able to pick up where he left off. He only played a half last week, and I think that he should continue to play well. I don't think there's any reason why he would struggle, especially with his offensive line healthy again. And then speaking of offensive lines, the Falcons were missing Alex Mack last week as well as one of their guards. And didn't really play a factor in the spread. But if you think about it, if their defense didn't do as well on Patrick Mahomes, they wouldn't have covered because they didn't really score that many points, even though they kept the game close. So if Brady's clicking with his receivers and the Buccaneers are scoring a ton, I don't know if Atlanta's going to be able to keep up because they have the injured offensive linemen. So if they're down 2 offensive linemen again, then I definitely like the Buccaneers a lot, and I'm probably going to bet as many units as you will. If the Falcons are healthier, and if Julio Jones somehow comes back, then this is going to be a non-bet for me. But I'm still going to be on Tampa.
Yeah, no, I think the injuries at this point, I just can't imagine why the Falcons would bring those guys back. Like, that's one thing that always bugs me about NFL late in the season. Like, if you're out of the playoff race in the last week of the season, I get it. Coaches are constantly fighting for their jobs and everything, and they should try to play with their full complement of players. But if you're a coach that, like, you're relatively sure you're safe, or you got a guy who's not 100%, they should sit. Like, you don't want to risk long-term injury, because even if you're a coach in a situation where you're like, oh, this guy's not fully healthy, but he can play, I'm going to play him, and then he gets hurt long-term, I feel like that's more damaging to you and your reputation as a coach than it would be if you just sat him and lost worse.
Yeah, exactly. Like, can you imagine if you rush back Julio Jones and he tears his Achilles? Like, then he won't be able to play until late in 2021. Like, then I think that's just horrible. And, you're better off losing because you get a better draft pick. So there's really no point in rushing back these players. I completely agree with that. All right. Anyway, next game, Ravens at the Bengals. The line opened up Ravens minus 11.5. It's up to 13. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I like Baltimore in this one. I know the Bengals have won back-to-back games as underdogs. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it again. The Ravens are a well-rounded team. They have a strong defense that's played pretty well this year, and their offense is getting back on track. Lamar Jackson's looking better. He's learning how to play behind the Ravens' offensive line that is, not as strong as it was last year. And he just looks more dynamic as a runner. I do think he was dealing with some minor knee injury at the midpoint of the season that was mentioned on the injury report once or twice. But really, outside of that 1 week, it hasn't been mentioned, but it may have been bugging him even just a little bit. I think that's going to help them to kind of run roughshod on the Ravens, especially with J.K. Dobbins looking well. I think that's gonna be their big advantage over the Bengals. They're gonna score a lot, and I just don't see Brandon Allen as good as he played against the Texans. I don't think he's gonna have as much success moving the ball against the Ravens. I know they might be without a couple defensive backs, the Ravens. So the possibility of a backdoor cover here does exist. That's why I'm not going to bet heavily on this line, if at all. I have it down for 0 to 1 unit on the Ravens right now. And, if they're without the 2 defensive backs, I may end up switching. Like, I'm not positive, but I think matchup-wise, the Ravens should win this game if all goes well. So I'm probably going to stick with them. I'm pretty 95% sure I'll be on them no matter what. I'm just not sure I'm going to bet this game.
Okay. Yeah, kind of like what you said. If the Ravens are down a couple cornerbacks again, they weren't really penalized for that against the Giants because Daniel Jones wasn't healthy, and they weren't penalized for that against the Jaguars because Jacksonville's just an abomination, So they weren't penalized for that. I think they could be penalized for that in this game. Brandon Allen has a very good game against the Texans. Granted, Houston's defense is trash, but he did play well, and he has good receivers. T. Higgins, AJ Green, and then he could throw to Giovanni Bernard over the middle of the field. So I think there's an avenue for the Bengals to score some points if the Ravens are missing some starters on defense, as they've had in the past couple of weeks. But if they get their guys back and they're mostly healthy, then I'm probably going to be with you on the Ravens. So it really depends on the injury report. I will say, though, that I thought, at first glance that this line was super high. I was like 13. The Bengals have won 2 in a row. And then I looked at the computer model and it said Baltimore minus 19 is the correct number. So I'm like, okay. So maybe it's not that high. So so it really depends on the injury report. Right now I'm going to side with the Bengals, but I might switch to Baltimore.
Yeah, I feel like we had another one of these games where we were both like, that line looks ridiculously high. And then the computer model was like a good 6 or 7 points above it earlier in the year. I think it was like a minus 20 for the Ravens at one point. We were like, maybe we should be on the Ravens here. So this feels kind of similar to that game. But yeah, if both of those corners are out, I could see Brandon Allen covering for even if it's backdoor for the Bengals. But I just can't bring myself to bet against the Ravens right now. I'm going to try to stick with the hot quarterback and probably not bet this game. There are others on the slate I like a lot more.
You know what? I think that game you're referring to was when they were playing at Washington, and they were minus 13, and I think it said minus 20, and they ended up winning by 14. Which kind of it wasn't even as close as that sounds, because the Redskins got a backdoor touchdown at the end, or sort of almost backdoor.
Yeah, that was definitely it. And Robert Griffin III had come in the game at that point and had thrown an interception, so it was like all sorts of mess in that game.
Yeah, imagine getting 14 and that happening. That's just a disaster. All right, last of the early games, the Dolphins at the Bills. The sign opened at Bills minus 3.5. It went up to 4.5, and now it's back down to 3. So looks like a lot of sharp money on Miami. I think some people might be suspecting that the Bills are going to sit their starters. So what do you think about this game?
Yeah, so I kind of like the Bills in this one. That's obviously assuming that they play their starters and continue to play them. But I think that they're just looking like a legitimate threat to win the Super Bowl right now. Their offense is looking elite, and their defense is playing better. They still have some problems against the run, but Matt Milano being back has been huge for that team as a whole. I don't think that they're going to sit their starters in this one. At least I can't imagine why. I just think even without fans, having 2 games in Buffalo could prove to be pretty big for them. If a team like, say, the Steelers locked into the 3 seed, lose in the wild card game, and then you end up playing a team like the Colts that's used to playing in a dome stadium in Buffalo winter weather, I think that would be such a huge advantage. I don't think Sean McDermott and his team want to squander that. I also think that they're trying to build momentum for the playoffs, and they've done a great job so far. They beat the Steelers in recent weeks. They crushed the Patriots during their first sweep of the Patriots since 1999, so over 2 decades ago. And then now you got Miami coming to town, and Buffalo has a chance to knock them off and knock them out of the playoff race. So I think that could end up benefiting them. I think that if they do that and treat it like a playoff game, play your starters, get up big, and just, this is a win or go home game for the Dolphins. If they beat them, that's kind of a big deal for the Bills, builds more confidence in them. I think that would matter. Now, I don't know if Sean McDermott's going to take that approach. That's just what I would do, and that's what I kind of think he will do. But if he does sit his starters, obviously the Dolphins at this number would be a little bit better because they can move the ball on the Bills defense a little bit with their run game. Myles Gaskin looked great against the Raiders, and Mike Gesicki has a good matchup because the Bills aren't very good against tight ends. That's one of their other weaknesses on defense. But I think if the starters play, I'm going to be on the Bills for a couple units. If we get news that Josh Allen and all those guys are out, I'll probably switch to Miami because I think that they'll win in what is a win or in scenario for them.
Yeah, this is a super tough game for me because on one hand, I see what you're saying about the Bills, wanting to keep the momentum going into the playoffs. The problem is, I guess, twofold. One is that even if they beat the Dolphins, they could play the Dolphins again in the first round, as Miami could be the 7th seed. So, do you really want to give the Dolphins good tape for them to look at? They're very well coached. They could easily devise a game plan to beat the Bills. So I think that's troublesome. The second thing is, what if the Steelers are down 28-0 at halftime because Mason Rudolph is just terrible? Suddenly the Bills could be like, all right, we're going to be the number 2 seed. Let's just sit our starters in the second half of this game. And then the Dolphins end up winning. So those are the 2 issues for the Bills. But then you have an issue for the Dolphins in that Tua Tagovailoa is a rookie quarterback going against one of the better defensive-minded coaches in the NFL, and Sean McDermott. Who McDermott did a great job on Justin Herbert a few weeks ago, and now Tua, who's not as good as Herbert this year, he could have a lot of problems. And so, even if the Bills sit half their starters, McDermott could still create a great game plan to fool Tua, and then Ryan Fitzpatrick will have to come in, and maybe Fitzpatrick will lead the Dolphins to victory, but it's still going to be a tough spot. And this line's only 3. If this line were 6 or higher, I'd be more enthusiastic about the Dolphins here. But at 3, it feels like I just don't know what to make of this game. I think I'm inclined to go with the Dolphins because I think there's a better chance the Bills will sit their starters. But really, this game is just a huge question mark for me.
Yeah, it will be a question mark until we know about whether or not they're going to sit their starters. And you make good points. Again, you don't want to give them good film to watch. And Brian Flores, especially, he could just tear Josh Allen apart if he gets good enough film. Now, I wouldn't bet on that happening, given how good Josh Allen's looked, but it's definitely a risk. I just think that I think for Buffalo, just playing the starters, just kind of keep things rolling makes a lot of sense to me. But, after seeing Cole Beasley go down late last week, maybe they'll be like, we don't want to risk that at all.
Yeah, that's true. That could play a factor in it. We haven't seen McDermott in the spot yet, so it's kind of hard to gauge. Whereas we'll get to the Chiefs later, but we've seen Andy Reid in Week 17. He just doesn't care. So I don't know. Evan is asking if we're going to have playoff picks. Yeah, we're definitely going to be around for the playoffs. So definitely looking forward to that, especially with the expanded playoff pool. All right, let's get to the late afternoon games. The first one of 8 is the Jaguars at the Colts. Line open up Colts minus 14. It's still 14. So who do you like here?
I like the Colts. I hate this line because just anytime you get a line this high, anything could happen. But the Jaguars have been terrible lately. And, they might have been not putting their best foot forward because they knew they were in the race to, get Trevor Lawrence. I think that's definitely a possibility. But at this point in the season, they're already locked into the number 1 spot. So will they try to a little bit harder, try to play spoiler? Will they bring back some of their injured guys and in this game and try to just beat Indy and knock them out of the playoff race? I could see it. I doubt it happens, but I just really don't know what to make of Jacksonville. The thing I do know is that Indianapolis is going to be ready for this game. They're coming off of a brutal loss to the Steelers where they just collapsed late on defense and couldn't do anything on offense. So I think the Colts are going to want to kind of get back on track after that game and get revenge on the Jaguars who beat them in week 1. And, if they had just taken care of business against the Jaguars team that has now lost 14 games in a row in week 1, the Colts would be in the driver's seat for the division. So they might just be like, we're going to put our best foot forward and just crush the Jags. So I think I'd bet more on that happening. I don't think I want to bet this line. You could probably convince me to if you have a compelling enough argument, but I'm on Colts, but this line just is scaring me a little bit.
Yeah, I guess my argument would be I wouldn't read too much into last week's loss against the Steelers because I thought I was surprised that the Colts got out big in the first place because they were down both tackles. And I thought that they wouldn't be able to move the ball at all. And I was surprised that Jonathan Taylor ran as well as he did. And then Taylor had a great blitz pickup to allow Rivers to get the touchdown to Pascal. And so when the Colts were up 24-7, I was tilting so hard. I was yelling at the TV. I'm like the Colts don't have both tackles. What are they doing? And then I was thrilled to get that comeback for the Steelers because they were my top play last week in addition to Jacksonville, sadly. So I think for me, if the Colts get their tackles back, at least one, but it both would be obviously better. If they get their tackles back, I think they're going to be able to move the ball so easily against Jacksonville. It won't be a problem. Whereas Jacksonville, they've really struggled to pass protect in recent weeks. I think they're going to have trouble with the Colts pass rush, and I really don't see them doing much. They suddenly don't have to lose to get Trevor Lawrence, but they've been trying to lose for so long that I just don't know how they can suddenly come away with a victory. They already beat the Colts this year. Is there going to be more motivation to beat them twice? I don't know. I feel like the Colts should be able to win this game easily if they get both tackles back.
Yeah, you make a good point. Why is Jacksonville going to all of a sudden try really hard just to be like, oh, we could beat the Colts twice in the year? That would just be also extremely embarrassing for the Colts to lose twice to the Jaguars. So I don't think, and Chris is asking if any of the factors are likely to occur in this game from the game that Jacksonville beat Indy. I don't think so. I think that was Phillip Rivers' first game with the Colts, and it's kind of rocky, and the Jaguars got a pretty good pass rush on him that game, I think. Or he might not, he just wasn't good throwing downfield. I think the no preseason might have had an impact on him. at this point in the year, Philip Rivers has played very, very well in recent weeks, so I don't see that being an impact. And their rushing game's much better because they had Marlon Mack that first game and probably planned on having him carry the load, but he got hurt immediately. So I think those two things will reverse themselves, and the Jaguars won't be able to keep up with the Colts as much.
Yeah, earlier in the year, so in that game specifically, Rivers threw an interception that like absolutely hurt, like killed the Jaguar or killed this team. The Colts are up, and then he threw a pick, and the Jaguars scored, and then it was a close game. The Colts played some close games early in the year. Like remember, they almost beat Tennessee in week 2. So if a couple of things would have gone right for them in that game, like they would have started 2-0, and then they'd be 2-14 right now. Like the Colts, the Jaguars back then, they had Miles Jack healthy, they had Josh Allen healthy, they had CJ Henderson a corner, he was healthy. Like all those guys are not playing anymore. Like they're just missing so many players in defense that it's just difficult for them to be competitive right now. I just don't really see them doing it. And looks like you look like an offensive lineman because of the beard, according to your mom. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm growing it out. I got to make myself look like Brandon Sheriff ahead of free agency.
Nice. Which Rivers is going to show up? Asks Randy. I think the good Rivers, because the Jaguars are terrible and they can't stop anyone. So unless all those guys come back from IR, which is not possible, then I really don't see them improving at all. All right, let's get to the next game. It's the Packers at the Bears. The sign open up. Packers -4. It's up to 5.5. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I love the Packers here. The Bears' offense has been really good in recent weeks, and they could potentially keep pace with the Packers. But I don't see that happening. The Packers need to win to get the 1 seed here. If they do that, they clinch it. They get home field advantage. They get a bye, and I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be motivated here to continue to play well, just to put that MVP in the bag, because I do think that means something to him. Because this offseason, we were talking a lot about how the Packers drafted Jordan Love as a potential successor to Rodgers. And, would this be the end of Rodgers in Green Bay if he had a bad year? And now he puts forth an MVP caliber performance as if to say, hey, you guys probably should have continued to invest in me. So I think that'll keep Rodgers and the Packers motivated. And then on the Bears side, you're looking at trusting Mitchell Trubisky in a must-win game. This just feels like the Aurora Snowmo effect right here. I don't know if I want to do that. I think the Packers defense does have some holes, but they played really, really well against the Titans. And granted, that was in the snow, so it was harder for them to throw, but they slowed down Derrick Henry, so they can definitely slow down David Montgomery. And Mitchell Trubisky's no Ryan Tannehill, so I could see the Packers coming in and winning this game by double digits. So if we're getting anything under 6, I absolutely love this. So I'm on it for 2 to 4 units. I'm just going to want to check the injury report, make sure that nothing unforeseen is happening with the Packers or the Bears. But I'm certainly going to be on the Packers in this one.
3 years ago, when Trubisky was drafted number 2 overall, did you ever think you'd say Mr. Trubisky is no Ryan Tannehill? It's
No.
how crazy that is. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, that is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's weird how things have worked out. So yeah, Trubisky has played better recently. I've heard some people say he's played well, and I guess relatively he has compared to what he's done in the past. But you kind of have to remember who he's played in the past 4 weeks. He's played the Texans and the Jaguars, 2 of the worst defenses in the NFL. And the other 2 opponents were the Lions and the Vikings, and those teams have been decimated by injury defensively, including the Vikings with Eric Kendricks not playing. So Trubisky's had so many easy games. The last tough game he had was against the Packers, where he made a lot of mistakes in the first 3 quarters, and then he put together a 4th quarter where he threw well and put up good stats, and then the Bears coaching staff, Matt Nagy is saying how he was impressed with Trubisky, even though Trubisky threw all those yards in garbage time. So I think the Packers should be able to contain Trubisky, especially with Trubisky having 2 injured offensive linemen in front of him. Like the 4 opponents he's played haven't been able to take advantage of that, and the Packers will be able to. And then the Packers getting back Corey Linsley last week was huge. Like as soon as that happened Saturday, I went from no units on the Packers to 4 units on the Packers. So I was very happy to see that happen. And then I bet heavily. We both had the Packers in the Super Contest. So yeah, I think the Packers. I like them a lot here. Also, the advanced spread on this game was Green Bay minus 6.5. And now it's 5.5. Now I know like 1 point's not a huge deal, but we do get the key number of 6, which is important.
Yeah, I think that's pretty big to get the key number. And, I think that the Bears are so focused on just winning this game to get to the playoffs too. I don't think that they're going to be able to get extra motivated to play the Packers. I think that if they were out of the playoff race or something, I could see them bringing it and being like, hey, we need to beat the Pack, or we want to beat the Pack here. But like where they need to win this game, I feel like they're going to be a little bit more like, where they could go all out and not care about what happens if they do lose. This one, they're going to be a little bit more conservative, which I think is related to the Aurora Snowmo effect, as you said earlier.
Yeah. Chris is saying, how many years would you guys re-sign Trubisky for? 8, 10, 20? He's amazing now, right? Yeah. Let's re-sign him to like 30-year contract. The $3.3 billion. I think that would work out pretty well for the Bears. Probably Ryan Pace was like, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe we should get on that. G Chuck is saying, I think Rodgers already has the MVP in the bag. I would say 99.9% sure. Now, if he comes out in this game and throws 4 interceptions and has a horrible game, that might make some voters vote for Mahomes, but I think you're right. And Andrew says, could this be the Bears Super Bowl? Like it is already, because they have to win to get into the playoffs. So like, I think when we say this is X team's Super Bowl, it's like a team that's not in the playoffs and has nothing to play for ordinarily. And they're playing a rival they hate and they want to win. Like, think about the Bengals against the Steelers on Monday night a couple of weeks ago. The Bengals had nothing to play for. Obviously, they would be better off losing. But they're playing the Steelers, whom they hate, and they wanted to beat the Steelers. And that was their Super Bowl, just because they're not going to be in the Super Bowl,
Yeah, I think the rule of thumb with is it this team's Super Bowl, they have to be not really able to get to the Super Bowl. Like the Bears, they can get to the playoffs, which, they're probably not going to get to the Super Bowl, but if they get to the playoffs, they can at least psych themselves into thinking it's possible. And just one more point on Aaron Rodgers as to why I think he'll have another good game. He has 47 total touchdowns on the year, so if he gets 3 more, he can have 50. And if he has 6 passing touchdowns, he'll have 50 passing touchdowns. So, if he comes out and throws 6 passing touchdowns, why. It's because he wants that 50.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So maybe it's a reason why you should play him in DraftKings this week or something. All right, next game, Titans at the Texans. This line opened up Titans -7. It's up to 7.5. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I kind of like the Texans here a little bit. I got like 2 units on them right now. Could go a little more, maybe a little less, depending on how confident I am. I know this is a win and in scenario for the Titans here, but I think that this line's just a little bit too high. People are really confident in how the Titans have played this year, but they've put up some poor performances and they've had some close wins. Earlier in the season, they beat the Jaguars, I think, by just 2 points. And they've had a number of games that have been decided by 1 possession or less. And I know Derrick Henry's going to run wild on the Texans. They allow more rushing yards than any team in the NFL. And I know Ryan Tannehill should have a good game in this one, but I'm not convinced the Titans defense is going to be able to contain Deshaun Watson as much as this line indicates. They had a lot of trouble against Aaron Rodgers. Granted, that was in the snow, and that's an MVP caliber player. But Deshaun Watson has kind of flown under the radar as to how well he's playing for a team that hasn't been very good and has gone through a lot of turmoil with coaching staff changes and losing his top 3 of his 4 receivers. But I think that the Titans, they aren't going to be able to contain the run game for the Texans. They're not going to be able to contain Deshaun Watson because they can't get pass rush pressure on him. So I could see this being a potential 3-point game. Comes down to the wire with a field goal. So if we're getting 7.5, I think it's a no-brainer to bet on the Texans here. And if anyone's wondering, there may be motivational issues on the Texans side. There are 2 things to keep in mind. One, if they beat the Titans and the Colts win, it's possible that the Titans are out of the playoffs, which would be a huge accomplishment for the Texans to, kind of hang their hat on this season and be like, hey, this was a lost season, but, at least we did that. And J.J. Watt's post-game comments, what I was getting to, and now Chris is asking about, I think that they will motivate them to treat this game like the Super Bowl as well, because J.J. Watt's an outspoken leader on that team, and he was livid at their effort last week. And I think that guys are going to be apt to step up for Watt and at least put forth their best foot in this game. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to win, but if they bring their best effort and they play really, really hard in all facets of the game, they should be able to cover this spread. So I'm going to be on the Texans here.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think people like kind of. It's weird how people view the Texans week in and week out. Like ever since Thanksgiving, like they played the Colts, and that was a high effort game the first time, and they were in position to win. And then Deshaun Watson and the center had that mishap, or the center had a bad snap, and Watson he had a chance to get it, and then and that was a fumble, and he had the towel on his head, on like sitting on the bench by himself, and you knew he'd be deflated, and the whole team would be deflated the following week. So the following week they played Chicago, and they put no effort into that game. They got blown out. So people were super down on them after that. Then they played the Colts again, and that was another high effort game for them. And they almost took the Colts to overtime, but Kiki Cutie fumbled inside the 5-yard line at the very end of the game. Yet another deflating ending for the Texans. And so, like, it's just a surprise at all that they put forth no effort against the Bengals last week. They had nothing to play for. They were huge favorites. It was kind of like, hey, why do we even care about this? We just lost, quote unquote, our Super Bowl. So I think this is another chance for the Texans to win their quote unquote Super Bowl against the Titans. Like you said, knocking them out of the playoffs. I think that's pretty huge. Like, it could at least give them some hope. And of course, they have nothing to play for here, because they have nothing to lose for, rather, because they have no first round pick or a second round pick, so they can't really improve in the draft positioning. So this is all they have to play for. And like you were talking about, the Titans have no pass rush at all. So even if they're up double digits, Deshaun Watson is going to have all the time in the world to connect with Brandon Cooks and Cutie and Chad Hansen, and like he could get the backdoor touchdown. And I think this line's too high. The advanced spread on this game was Titans -4.5. It's up to 7.5, so we're getting 3 points of value with 6 and 7. I love Houston. I think they're going to come out, and I think Aurora Snomo might claim one of her victims here.
Yeah, and this is really making me, like, the more we talk about this game, the more excited I am to bet the Texans. So I'm probably going to up my unit count. I just think that the motivation for the Texans is definitely there. And this whole year I've kind of not been sold on the Titans, even though I bet them to win the Super Bowl at one point. That was because I thought Tom Brady might sign there. This game and this line just feels like a great spot for the Texans.
Yeah, I agree. And you have that great bet on the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl, which I'm super jealous of. But let's get to the next game. Saints at the Panthers. This line opened up Saints -6. It's up to 6.5. So who do you like here?
Yeah, so I like the Saints here. I don't love this game overall because the Saints have something to play for. They could technically win the 1 seed if the Packers lose to the Bears. But this could be another scenario where, they play their starters in hopes of locking up the number 1 or number 2 seed so that they can have at least 2 games in the Dome. That would be guaranteed with the 2 seed if they win. And that would be huge for them because they need the Dome. But at the same time, if they get up big on the Panthers and they see, the Packers, they're falling behind, or no, the Packers, they're pulling away too. They may sit Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara and those guys and just say, like, Taysom Hill can get this done for the rest of it. They can hold them off. And that could open the door for a backdoor cover. Or if they see that that's happening and the Seahawks are losing in their game or something along those lines, they could also sit their starters. So there's a lot of stuff that could happen in game for the Saints that could allow the Panthers to get a backdoor cover. I wouldn't bet on it. And I still think the Saints should cover this spread if all goes well. But there are just kind of too many questions for me to bet this game. I'll probably be on the Saints for office pool purposes because I think that they could win this by 7 points. But you can really swing me either way on this one.
Yeah, it's a tough game because of what you said. If the Saints see that the Packers are up big, then they'll just be like, all right, we're just going to pull everyone and not even try to win this game anymore. So that's the tough one. That's the tough part here. This is maybe a game that you might want to live bet. I wouldn't bet this beforehand, though, because there's so many unknowns. But I guess something we do know is that the Panthers are capable of staying within good teams. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater always plays close games, maybe not always, but usually. So like against the Chiefs this year, he lost by 2 points. Against the Saints earlier in New Orleans, it was a field goal game at the end. Against the Packers, they said within 8. The Panthers seem to stay within 1 score most of the time. Now, like Christian McCaffrey is not going to play, but the Panthers have their full offense otherwise. So I think they should be able to maybe keep this close. And even if the Saints play their starters the entire game, I think there's a chance that Teddy Bridgewater gets a backdoor cover of some sort. Not guaranteed because the Saints don't have that many injuries right now. But, if the Saints get some more players on the injury report, then I could definitely see the Panthers being the right side here. So I'm just going to look at the injury report. Right now, I'm going to be on the Panthers for no units, though.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, as well as I do that I love Teddy Bridgewater against the spread. Like, at one point, he had covered the spread in like 14 of his last 18 starts. They're 9-6 against the spread. The Panthers are this year. So Bridgewater's still winning against the spread at an above average clip. So I love the idea of betting Bridgewater most circumstances. So I could see myself switching to the Panthers, but I just think I can't bet this game without knowing what's going to happen. I think you're right. This is a good one to live bet if you really want action on it.
Yeah, Mark's asking, who do you guys pick in the Super Bowl? My pick before the season was Buccaneers over Chiefs. If I had to redo that, I think I would go Chiefs over Packers. What do you say?
I had Buccaneers over Colts. If I had to redo it, I would do Packers over Bills. I just refuse to pick the previous year's Super Bowl winner to win a Super Bowl. It's like this real big mental block I have.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, it hasn't happened in almost 20 years, so I definitely don't blame you for that. All right, let's get to the Western games where there have been no time changes. The Chargers are at the Chiefs. There's no line on this game because, I don't know why there's no line because Andy Reid has already said his starters won't play. So why is there no line? So what do you think the spread is going to be, and what are your thoughts on this game?
So if I had to, I think the spread's probably going to be somewhere around Chargers -4.5, maybe. I don't know exactly. I'm not great at predicting spreads. I will like the Chargers in this game, though. I think Justin Herbert's played extremely well at quarterback this year, and the Chiefs just aren't going to have motivation. They're going to be playing Chad Henne at quarterback, and Henne's a fine backup, but I don't think he can go toe to toe with Herbert. And the Chargers have played pretty well lately, I thought. I know they play in close games and they tend to lose one-possession games, so them being favored doesn't offer a whole lot of confidence. And also, Andy Reid is a better coach than Anthony Lynn, so that's a little bit of a shaky territory to be in on. But I think the Chargers are going to be motivated to try to win this game and the year on a winning streak and possibly save Anthony Lynn's job. We saw a similar thing happen in Atlanta with Dan Quinn last year. A coach that hadn't performed well early in the year, but his team turned things around because they liked the guy enough. They got on a winning streak and saved his job. I think you're going to see a similar thing in Los Angeles. And now, I think Anthony Lynn and his staff have done such a great job with Justin Herbert. I don't think they're very good in game. I would love to see Anthony Lynn bring on an assistant head coach of some sort to help him with in-game management, some sort of veteran. Like if Marvin Lewis was willing to do it, like and work in the front office and work on the sidelines, that would be an amazing role. But I think that the team's going to be motivated to win for Lynn. So I'm going to be in on the Chargers for this one, but I'm interested to hear what you think of this one.
Well, I'm interested in these comments. So Chris is saying, could Anthony Lynn's poor clock management cause the Chargers to miss their flight? Wouldn't surprise me if that happened. And then G Chuck says Rich Kotite is better than Anthony Lynn. I don't know about that. Like Rich Kotite, once he had this happened so long ago. The Jets, when he coached the Jets, like they had, or is it the Eagles? They had like an obvious go for two situation, and they didn't go for two. And then the reporters after the game asked Kotite, like, "Hey, why don't you go for two here? It's kind of obvious." And the Kotite said, "Well, my go for two sheet got wet, so I didn't know whether to go for a two or not." So that actually happened. So yeah, no one's worse than Kotite. As for this game, I made my personal line Chargers -9, and that was like not what I think the line is going to be. That's what I think the line should be. Just because Andy Reid doesn't give a crap about week 17. Like he just loses all these games, these games that don't matter at all. It's gonna be Chad Henne throwing to Byron Pringle, And the tight end on the Chiefs, I can't pronounce his name. He's got like 4 consonants in a row. So it's going to be bad. The Chiefs are not going to play Chris Jones. They're not going to play Tyrann Mathieu. It's just going to be scrubs. And the Chargers almost beat the Chiefs with their starters in week 2. So why can't they beat their backups? So I think I'm going to be in the Chargers no matter what, unless this line is like 10 or higher.
I'm glad we're on the Chargers together here because I was worried that you were going to be like, no, I'm going with the Chiefs here. But yeah, no, it doesn't seem like Andy Reid will take this as kind of like a little bit mini vacation week, just kind of have a little bit of fun. So I think that's gonna work out pretty well. And I love the Dan Quinn Anthony Lynn comparison because I think Anthony Lynn has proven to be like a very good offensive mind at developing quarterbacks and working to like create some good offensive plays. But his play calling and in-game clock management is just so bad. Like, I think if he eventually leaves the Chargers, some team's going to hire him as an offensive coordinator and be very, very happy. I mean, remember the work he did with Tyrod Taylor and the Bills. But, if the Chargers have to have another year of him as head coach with the constant clock management issues, I think that their under win total is going to look appealing next year unless Justin Herbert can really kind of put the team on his back.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's a good assistant coach for sure, but he's not a good head coach. And when you said he needs to hire a veteran to help him with clock management, I initially thought you were going to say he needs to hire a college kid who plays Madden to help him with his clock management. I think that could be just as good. Like it's amazing how many times they screw up in the 2-minute drill. It seemed like they did it like 3 or 4 weeks in a row earlier in this year. It's pretty amazing.
I'll offer myself as Anthony Lynn's clock manager. I'm always pretending to call timeouts like this during basketball, football games. I'm always doing it. I know what I'm doing, Anthony Lynn. If you need help, hire me.
Yeah, right. All right. Next game, Seahawks at the 49ers. This line opened up Seahawks -4. It's up to 5.5. It's even 6 at Pinnacle. So it might be headed there. Who do you like in this game?
I'm kind of leaning on the 49ers here because I don't know how much the Seahawks are going to care about this game. They have a very, very outside chance at the 1 seed. I think that they would have to have the Packers lose and some combination of them winning and the Saints losing. I'm not exactly sure all the scenarios, but I know it's it's possible, but it's difficult and unlikely. So if they're playing to get the 2 or 3 seed, I don't think that's going to matter a ton to them. Because they're going to have to go on the road at some point. And meanwhile, I know the 49ers are banged up on offense and defense, and you were all over them last week, and I wanted to change my pick when I heard CJ Beathard was starting, but I couldn't make myself do it. So this might be me trying to atone for that. But Beathard, I think, is a better player than Nick Mullins at this point. He can actually throw the ball accurately. I think he's developing nicely into a good backup. So I'm wondering why he didn't start sooner. But beyond that, I think that if the Seahawks aren't putting forth their best foot or their best effort, because they're locked into the 3 seed or something of that ilk and they sit their starters late, the 49ers could make a comeback and earn a backdoor cover here. So I'm going to be on the Niners here, probably for no units because of the amount of injuries they're dealing with. But if they operate the same game plan they did against the Cardinals, run it with Jeff Wilson, let CJ Beathard make some efficient play action throws, I could easily see them covering here. I'm just not confident in it because, again, this is a game where a team could choose to sit their starters but might not.
Yeah, so I could be wrong here, but I think Pete Carroll likes to win these meaningless Week 17 games. I'm gonna have to make sure and look back. But Pete Carroll is someone who takes preseason games seriously, and he tends to play his starters, deep into game 3 at least. And then I remember he even played his starters one year in week 4 of the preseason. So I have more confidence that he'll want to win this game. And the formula for the Seahawks to get the number 1 seed is that they need a win, they need the Packers to lose, and they need the Saints to lose, which is definitely a possibility because neither the Saints nor the Packers are favored by more than a touchdown. So they could definitely lose. And I think the Seahawks might try to get the number 1 seed. And I think that the 49ers might be the team that's not motivated because they won last week. It was a big win for them, kind of their Super Bowl. And they're already saying that they're not going to play a bunch of their players. Like Jimmy Garoppolo had a chance to come back, and he's not going to play. They said Trent Williams is not going to play in this game. They said that Brandon Ayuk is not going to play in this game. So it's like, how many more players are the 49ers not going to have? Like who's even going to play for them at this point? They're going to be missing multiple offensive linemen. They're not going to have their top 2 receivers. I could even see them sitting George Kittle or limiting him again, because like, why even play him at this point? So if the 49ers are down even more players, then I definitely have a lot of interest in Seattle. But like I said, I want to go back and see what Pete Carroll has done in these Week 17 games.
So as you mentioned that point, I had a flood of memory coming back to me that the Seahawks don't rest their starters typically. So that kind of changes my outlook on this game. I'm still kind of torn on it, because you never know. Maybe Pete Carroll's like, if Russell Wilson's like, I need to rest, like I'm dealing with some sort of minor, tiny injury or something, then he might rest. But if this number stays under 6, I might like the Seahawks more now. I'm very torn on this one, because I think you're right. Pete Carroll does not like to sit his starters at any point.
Yeah. So Chris is asking, like, do you have any data on rare situations like this where a favorite with something to play for goes against an eliminated team that sits as starters? That's happened so rarely, though. Like an eliminated team will usually play a lot of his starters, but it seems like the 49ers are sitting a lot of their guys. And that caught me off guard. And like, it kind of like, I'm thinking now, I can't even think of a lot of instances where that's happened. So maybe I'll look back and see what happens, but I don't know if there are going to be a lot of instances. Like, it's not going to be a big sample size, even if I find something. Mark's asking, do I do NBA picks? I do. I haven't really had time to do that, but as soon as the regular season's over, I'm going to have NBA picks every day on the site. All right, next game, Raiders at the Broncos. This line opened up Broncos -2. It's up to Raiders -2.5. So who do you like here?
Wait, it opened at Broncos -2?
It did. It opened Broncos -2 at Chris, and now it's Raiders -2.5.
Oh, wow. Okay. I like the Broncos at +2.5. Now I like them even more. I just think that the Broncos are going to have a chance to win this game outright. They're playing for next season at this point, but Vic Fangio has done a good job of managing this team through a bunch of injuries and Drew Lock's inconsistency. And I think that they're going to come out and want to win after, a close loss last week against the Chargers where they almost completed a comeback. I think that they're going to be motivated and say, hey, why can't we beat the Raiders this week? And I also think that the Raiders are going to be deflated after the brutal way that they lost to the Dolphins. I mean, they had that game won to stay in the playoff race. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick completed that ridiculous pass while getting his face mask ripped. And the Dolphins were able to win the game as a result of that. And the Daniel Clarkson missed extra point came back, or Daniel Carlson, not Clarkson. Got my NBA brain on partially now because Mark mentioned it. But I just think that the Broncos are going to be ready. The Raiders are going to be deflated from that. So if we're getting 4.5 points of line movement, I'm going to be all over the Broncos. And if this game somehow gets to 3, I might put 4 units on it. Right now, got it for 2 or 3, depending on the injury report.
Yeah, the advanced spread on this game was Denver -2.5, and this game opened at -2. So we've had a 5-point swing from the advanced line. It's pretty big, and I kind of wonder why. Like, it's not like the Raiders have done anything impressive recently. Like they've lost 2 games in a row because of red zone ineptitude, and the Broncos lost to the Chargers, but they played closely, and Denver made so many mistakes in that game. Like Drew Lock had a couple of errors. Jerry Jeudy dropped 6 passes, like 2 of which were long throws. If Jeudy caught those passes, Denver might have won that game. And then they would definitely be favored, I feel like, heading into this one. So I think we're getting good value. I would love +3, so maybe that'll get there. At +3, I would like Denver a lot. At +2.5, I'd like Denver a little bit. So the one issue for me with Denver is that they're down their top 2 cornerbacks. So that's one area the Raiders can exploit. But like you were saying, I don't know what the motivation is going to be here for the Raiders. Like the way they lost to be eliminated from the playoffs that way, like not just to lose that game the way they did, but to be eliminated from the playoffs like that. It's kind of ridiculous. And also the Raiders, they demolished Denver back in week 10, I believe. It was 37-12. So the Broncos are going to definitely want revenge here. So I like Denver.
Yeah, and I think in that game, like the Raiders ran like crazy on the Broncos when they didn't have their defensive line. They're healthier in that regard now, at least. Even without the cornerbacks, I think that Denver should have a chance to win this. And I think this is going to be a field goal game, and I kind of think Denver's going to win. So that line move doesn't make any sense to me, because even if you're saying like, oh, maybe the advanced line was because they thought Marcus Mariota was going to start and Derek Carr wasn't healthy. Like, I don't think Derek Carr versus Marcus Mariota should move the line that many points.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not. I feel like the way Mariota played against the Chargers, they're kind of even. I feel like so maybe 1 point at most. So all right, last of the late afternoon games. Cardinals at the Rams. There's no line because we don't know who's going to play quarterback. For the Rams, it definitely sounds like Jared Goff's going to be out because of his dislocated thumb. So that means John Wolflord is going to be the starting quarterback for the Rams. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, Kyler Murray suffered a leg injury, so it could be Chris Streveler, whoever that is. So what are your thoughts on this game?
So first things first, I want to say Chris Streveler, I refuse to look up any information about him because I just don't. I want to have one like shred of mystery left in the NFL. Like, I found out he was the backup quarterback to Kyler Murray at one point this year, and I was like, I've never heard of this guy. I actually, until yesterday, thought his name was Chase. So like, I'm preserving that thing as like, oh, until he ever sees the field, I'm just going to let that be a mystery at this point. But I like the Rams in this one, actually, potentially a lot. Now, John Wolford, he's going to be the quarterback this week. Jared Goff, I don't think can play after thumb surgery. I think he's shooting to come back in the first round of the playoffs if the Rams make it. But Wolford played in the AAF, was very good in there. He led the league in touchdown passes with 14. And then McVay and the Rams scooped him up and have kind of had him around since 2019. And he had some nice plays in the preseason that year, I guess. And I watched one of his passes, and, he was rolling out to the right, and he made a really nice looking throw. Now, I know this is probably against like third and fourth stringers, but my thought process here is that if Sean McVay liked him enough to make him the backup quarterback to a team that had playoff aspirations, I think I'm willing to trust Sean McVay at this point. There's probably a good reason for it. And then on the other side of things, I think Kyler Murray is trending toward playing, but I don't think he's going to be fully healthy. So if he suits up and isn't healthy, I think that the spread's going to definitely favor the Cardinals. But I can see the Rams winning because a non-healthy Kyler Murray against a good pass rush could be a recipe for disaster. And then, if Streveler plays, I don't know. I know nothing about him. So I would favor Wolford over him because I think that McVay's work with quarterbacks has been very, Streveler played for the Grey Cup championship in 2019. That makes a lot more sense. All right, CFL dude. Okay, now I know who he is. But I'm going to go with the Rams at this point. I'm interested to see what the line is. But if we get Wolford versus Streveler fighting for a playoff spot, that would be the ultimate 2020 game, and I would enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I like how you wanted to wait until the game to find out information on him, and he just did. So it's kind of a cool moment right there. Chris Streveler is like someone that if we had a preseason, we would know a lot more about him because I love watching the preseason games just to see all the quarterbacks and like how they do. And I haven't missed a preseason game in like 15 years, so I definitely would have information on Streveler, but I do not. Same thing with a Wolflord. Like I'll be able to watch like later in the week. I'm going to watch some of his tape from the 2019 preseason. But yeah, from what it sounds like, I have more confidence in him than Streveler. Even more so than like Kyler Murray, who's going to be injured. Like we've seen Kyler Murray really struggle with that injury with the shoulder where he refused to run, and now he has a leg injury, so he's not going to run at all. And while he'll be able to complete some passes to Hopkins, he's going to be pretty limited, and he's going to be going against a Rams defense that's pretty elite. So I don't have any confidence in the Cardinals, and I love good teams playing backup quarterbacks. It seems like the other players really step up for that, for the situation. And I think the Rams are going to do that as well. And I think more so than the Cardinals, because like Kyler Murray is Arizona, really. I mean, he's such a big part of their offense outside of Hopkins. Like he does everything. Whereas the Rams, like, they really don't depend on Jared Goff. Like, they actually have won in spite of Jared Goff recently. So I think that, if Sean McVay is going to be able to game plan, he's going to have a great game plan for this game, and he's going to be able to coach up Wolf Lord. I think that the Rams should be able to win this, and I'm kind of hoping that Murray plays, because then we're going to get the Rams as a home dog.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping as well, because the value we'd get there as a home underdog would be against an injured quarterback would be pretty big deal. So like I said, I'm looking forward to this game. I'm playing Wolford in DraftKings too, because he's super, super cheap, and you can get him and pair him with like Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, and Derrick Henry in pretty good matchups. So if you're looking for a very contrarian approach, go with Wolford, because that is going to be fun either way, whether it blows up in our face or pans out. It's always fun to go with a no-name quarterback.
Yeah, definitely someone you want to play in GPPs for sure. Mark's saying the Rams are plus 1.5 at CBS, but the sportsbooks really dictate that. So like we'll see what the line is. All right, the Sunday night game, the final game of the regular season, the Redskins at the Eagles. This line was a pick'em to open, and now the Redskins are minus 1.5. So who do you like here?
Yeah, so I'm going to be on Washington here. They had a win-in scenario last week, but they made the mistake of sticking with Dwayne Haskins. Hindsight is always 2020. And you could say like, oh, they should have cut him immediately after, he violated COVID protocol for the second time. And they should have, just gotten rid of him or suspended him and rolled with Taylor Heineke instead. Or at the very least, should have played Taylor Heineke coming out of the half, because he looked significantly more effective than Haskins. But that's all in the rear view for Washington now. By cutting him, that no longer is an issue. It's about whether or not Alex Smith can play. And if he doesn't, then Taylor Heineke will come in the game. At this point, I'm not willing to put a ton of confidence in Heineke, but he looked good enough against the Panthers, and I could see him throwing well against the Eagles secondary. And same goes for Alex Smith. Like, all they have to do is manage the game on offense, not turn the ball over, and just, keep that offense moving for them to be in good shape. I think that their defense is really what's going to win the game for them. They're going to be able to get after Jalen Hurts. We saw him struggle under pressure more against the Cowboys last week, and the Cardinals the week before. He struggled with sacks. So against a really good defensive front, I could see him being under pressure a lot. I mean, that offensive line for the Eagles is in awful shape right now. And the motivation for them at this point will be, to knock Washington out of the postseason. So I do think that is going to matter, especially for Doug Peterson, who will be looking to build toward next year. But I'm just not convinced that they match up well enough with Washington to get the job done here. So I'm going to go with Washington here. And I think that, if we're getting under 3, I like this, because I think this probably will be a field goal game, defensive battle type. So long as Washington's defense shows up. And, they've been playing extremely well in the second half recently. They held the Panthers to no points last week in the second half. So even if they're down early, I think they can make a comeback win.
So I think you'd be right under normal circumstances, but I think that there are a couple things here. Like, one, even if Alex Smith starts, he's going to be pretty limited with his cap. It sounds like it's still like a pretty dire situation. And he's not going to be able to move around in the pocket at all. And that could result in sacks, especially if Fletcher Cox comes back. Like, that'll be huge. I think the Eagles should be able to pressure Alex Smith. So like the injury there, that is a big factor. The other thing is that this is an Aurora Snomo game. Like, the Redskins need a win. Eagles have nothing to play for outside of winning and knocking a team out of the playoffs. And like, this is the ultimate win and in situation for the Redskins. And like, I just think that it's going to be a choke situation for them. And I think the Eagles could end up winning this game. Also love the line value we're getting. The Eagles on the advanced spread were -4, and now they're 1.5 point underdogs. It's a 5.5 point shift because they lost to Dallas. And like we were talking about before, if Fletcher Cox doesn't go down, I think they should be able to limit Dallas and potentially win that game, win a close game, and like, things happen. So if Cox comes back, I like the Eagles a lot. Even if he's not available, I think I like the Eagles a little bit.
Okay, that line value is definitely absurd. I did not realize it. I thought the Eagles opened as favorites, but I didn't know it was by that much. So that makes me a little bit more apprehensive to pick Washington. But I think I'm going to stick with the matchups in this one because we've said it even before the opener, back when both teams were fully healthy. Washington matches up very well with Philadelphia, and Washington's the healthier team right now. So I think if Fletcher Cox comes back, I could see that happening. I'm also not convinced Alex Smith is going to make it back to start for this game. So if Taylor Heineke starts, I'm assuming that this line will move a little bit. And then if Washington's an underdog, I might like them a little bit more. I don't have much on this game right now because I care too much about this for my other Washington-based job. So I have 0 units on it right now. I might go up to 1 if I'm feeling it because it's a night game. But I'm going to stick with them. But there's a lot. You made me nervous. Let me put it like that. Your argument has made me nervous about this, especially with the Aurora Snowmo effect.
Yeah, I definitely like the Eagles for those reasons. And like speaking of that Week 1 game, can you like still believe that the Eagles are 5.5-point favorites on the road in Washington? Like, it just goes to show like how mispriced things are right now. Like, if this were a game where the Redskins had a healthy quarterback and they were at home against the Eagles, this line would be what, like closer to Washington -7, right? So it's a 12.5-point swing. That's all.
Yep. Pretty crazy stuff. The line, we identified that like 3 months before the season. It's like, oh, we like that. We like that a lot. And they were getting killed, and then they made it all the way back, and we covered the money line and everything.
Yeah, I know. I was so tilted when Washington went up or Eagles went up and Washington came back and won. We both had this in the Super Contest, so that was pretty cool. All right, so teaser. So I was looking at this, and I think I identified what I like for a teaser this week. I think things could change. Like, lines are going to move, so I might do something different at the end of the week. But right now, I like the Eagles at +7.5. And I like the Broncos at +8.5. In both situations, we're going up through 3, 6, and 7, which I think is the most important thing to do in a teaser. It's mathematically the best thing you can do. And I think that the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos are going to get blown out again by the Raiders, especially at home. And I can't see an injured Alex Smith or Taylor Heineke winning by more than a touchdown. Like, even if the Redskins win, I think that'll be a close game.
Yeah, I agree with you. Those two would be my top teaser picks this week as well, because I think that the Philadelphia-Washington game, no matter what, will be close. And I like Denver to win that game outright against Vegas. So if we're getting extra points, I'll take that all day, every day. So those are the two I would go with. So I think if you're playing a teaser, definitely go with those.
Here's a question from Andrew. Could the Eagles be deflated after being eliminated? What do you think?
I think it's possible. I think where they have an opportunity to knock out another team and treat this game as their Super Bowl, I think that they'll be more motivated for it. I think if Carson Wentz was still the starter for them, they probably would just come out deflated. But Jalen Hurts is young enough that this team kind of is looking like, oh, if we beat this team right now, we're going to have a bright future. So I think that they won't be deflated for it, but I don't know. Maybe they come out deflated. I think Doug Peterson will have them ready, though.
Yeah, I think there's a small chance that happens. I think you made a good point about Wentz versus Hurts. I think the Eagles will play harder for Hurts at this point. And also, I don't think the Eagles thought they're going to make the playoffs for a while anyway. And like suddenly they had a chance, and yeah, they were eliminated. But I feel like they thought they were eliminated long ago. So I think there's more likely than not that they won't be deflated. But I think there's a very small chance they will be. So I wouldn't go super heavy on this game, but I definitely like the Eagles. Survivor here. If you're lucky enough to still be alive, congratulations. I am not. Both of us are not alive. And so of the teams I have available, I have the Buccaneers still available. So I will go with Tampa to beat Atlanta. They're the best options out of all the teams left. Curiously, on the website where I have Survivor advice, I had the Saints available, but not Tampa. I don't know what happened. So I either of those picks are good. But overall, if you could pick any team, obviously I think you would take the Colts. But there are a lot of good options this week, including Cleveland and also Baltimore.
Yeah, those are the three best options, unless you're terrified of the Jaguars versus Colts, which I wouldn't blame you after what happened to us in week 1. Yeah, I mean, I would be apt if I was still alive, which I am very not. I've been out since week 1 and did not have any buyback entries or anything. I would almost be tempted to just go with either Washington or Philadelphia, whichever side you like best, if you have one left in that last game, and just be like, I survived all the way up to the game 256, guys. I made it. So, you could do something like that, but obviously the 3 teams you mentioned are better. But if you're looking for like, oh, I don't have any of them, choosing one side in that game, it'll be a fun Sunday night for you either way. Maybe stressful, but stress is kind of fun when it comes to watching sports.
Yeah, that is part of it. It's a cool story to tell. Like, even if you don't win, you're like, hey, I got to game 256, as you said. So that is definitely a cool idea. Chris asking, does this game being on Sunday Night Football increase the chances of the Aurora Snowmo effect? I think it does. Being on national TV in the spotlight, I think for sure. I think it could make Washington choke harder.
It's definitely possible, but weirdly enough, I think they're 2-0 in primetime this year. So I don't know if they play better in primetime or if they just happen to be in good situations. I think part of it is I just think Ron Rivera is going to have this team motivated after last week. I just think that the script is there. The script has, like, I see the script of like Washington rising from the ashes like a phoenix, and Ron Rivera recovered from cancer treatment earlier in the year, turning around the franchise. But, that's just my pipe dream. So We'll see if it happens or not.
Yeah, it is a cool story. You want to root for him. He's a good guy, recovering from cancer. So, of all of the 3 teams that can still make it, I think you would be rooting for Rivera unless you have a big bet on the Giants to win the division. So,
yep.
Anyway, that is it for this week. Please hit subscribe, the like button, or comment below. That would be great. Or share this video with someone. That would mean a lot to us. So, Jacob, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can just follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I'll tweet out my favorite picks of the week on Sunday, and I'll tweet my pick for the Eagles game against Washington on Sunday night. I forgot to tweet all of my primetime picks this week. That was the first time that's happened. So I'll blame the holidays for it, but I'll be better about that come postseason time. And yeah, if you ever have any football questions or just want to chat about stuff, hit me up there, and let's keep talking football. It's going to be a good playoff season with the extra playoff game.
Yeah, I'm excited for the 6 opening run games. It should be a lot of fun. I'm at walterfootball.com. Updated picks throughout the week, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Those are the big updates, especially the 2 final ones. Updated 2021 NFL mock draft tomorrow morning. We're going to have a round 3 later in the week. And then next week, we're going to have a round 4. I'm actually close to finishing the 2021 fantasy football rankings. So I should have those available probably by the weekend of the first playoff game. So definitely look for that if you want to get a head start on fantasy research. And then Charlie, of course, has tons of NFL draft content to check out. So definitely look into that. Otherwise, everyone have a happy new year, including you, Jacob. And I will talk to you later.
Yeah, happy new year, guys. Thanks for watching.
All right, bye.